Hi everybody. This lesson is for Monday, April 20th. 7.3 day 1. We're going to learn how to solve trigonometric equations, solve equations. So given an equation, find which thetas, which angles make those equations true. Solving equations is a technique that has been used since early algebra courses like Math 1, Math 2. For example, the solution to 2x plus 1 equals 7 is true when x equals 3. You subtract 1 from both sides and get 6 and divide by 2 and get 3, and false for all other solutions. Trigonometric ratios can also be solved. Solutions to the equations are values of the variable that make the equation a true statement. So we're going to determine whether pi over 4 or pi over 6 are solutions of the equation sine theta equals 1/2. Sine theta equals 1/2. Well, if we think about the unit circle, which we spent a lot of time learning, when sine is 1/2, it's there and it's there. Because sine is positive when you go up, and this is 1/2, it's short. So that angle in radians is pi over 6, or 5 pi over 6 if we go to this one. It's not pi over 4. If we do sine of pi over 4, that's equal to rad 2 over 2, which was not equal to 1/2, which is what the equation says. Sine of theta equals 1/2. So this is no. But sine of pi over 6 is equal to 1/2. So yes, it makes the equation true. Because all 6 trig functions are periodic, they repeat themselves every certain amount of degrees or radians. This means that there are infinite solutions to the equation sine theta equals 1/2. What are some other solutions? It says there are infinite solutions. So we said 5 pi over 6 also works, because that's right here. Right here is 5 pi over 6. If you go around the circle one time and add 2 pi, if you take pi over 6 and add 2 pi, which is 12 pi over 6, you get 13 pi over 6. There's an infinite number of answers that you can get. So keep adding 2 pi to pi over 6 and to 5 pi over 6, and you'll keep getting answers or solutions to the equation. Find all the solutions. So you have to ask yourself, are they asking for the solutions between 0 and 2 pi? Or are they asking for all the solutions? There's a difference. So it says 2 cosine theta minus rad 3 equals 0. 2 cosine theta equals radical 3. Cosine theta equals radical 3 over 2. So cosine is long. It's the x. So it looks like this. And it would be pi over 6 and 5 pi over 6. That's between 0 and 2 pi. That's in an interval. Between 0 and 2 pi, going around the circle once, those are the two answers that we get. We want a general formula. That's going to be theta equals pi over 6 plus 2 pi k, because you go around the circle once or twice or 3 times depending on what k is, or 5 pi over 6 plus 2 pi k, where k is an element of the integers. So you can plug in 0 and get pi over 6. You can substitute in 1 and get 13 pi over 6. Substitute in 2. You substitute in different values to get the different angles. So here they want other 8 solutions. So if k is -1, you subtract 2 pi over k, 2 pi k. So it's -2 pi k. So it's -12 pi over 6 plus 1 pi over 6 is -11 pi over 6. If you do it to 5 pi over 6, if you take 5 pi over 6 and subtract 12 pi over 6, you get -7 pi over 6. That's when k is -1. Then we had our two answers when k was 0, pi over 6 and 5 pi over 6. When k is 1, you add 12 pi over 6 to 1 and you get 13 pi over 6. And when you add 12 to 5, you get 17 pi. To 5 pi over 6, you add 2 pi, you get 17 pi over 6. And then when k is 2, you add another 12 pi over 6 and you get 25 pi over 6 and 29 pi over 6. You can put 2 in here and get 4 pi. And 4 pi, if you want it over 6, it's 24. And 24 plus 5 is 29. And 24 plus 1 is 25. So you can get specific answers or you can get a general formula. We're going to do example 3, 4, and 5 on a piece of paper. So, or you can find room somewhere. Example 3 is 2 sine theta plus rad 3 equals 0. And the interval 0 is less than or equal to theta is less than 2 pi. We want it on the unit circle. So we're going to subtract rad 3. 2 sine theta equals negative rad 3. Divide by 2. Negative rad 3 over 2. So where is sine negative? Down. And sine is long, not 1/2, but rad 3 over 2. So this is pi over 3. Pi over 3. So we have 1 pi plus pi over 3 is 5 pi over 3 and 4 pi over 3 and 5 pi over 3. Theta equals 4 pi over 3 and 5 pi over 3. Because this is pi. If you add 1 pi over 3 to it, you get 4 pi over 3. If you add 2 pi over 3s to it, you get 5 pi over 3. That's in the interval. For your homework, you're going to be doing in the interval between 0 and 2 pi, not general solutions. But you will be doing that eventually. This is only day 1. Secant theta plus 2 equals 0. Secant theta equals -2. And I'm not that good working with secant and tangent, cotangent, and cosecant, so I'm going to change it to cosine theta equals, and these are what? Reciprocals, so -1/2. So cosine of theta is -1/2. Cosine is negative here and here. And the angle is pi over 3 right here. So this is theta equals, oh, they like it when you put it in set notation. 2 pi over 3 and 4 pi over 3. Because this is pi. Subtract 1 pi over 3. And you have 2 pi over 3. Add 1 pi over 3. You get 4 pi over 3. And then our last example. 2 cosine squared theta minus 1 equals 0. 2 cosine squared theta equals 1. Cosine squared theta equals 1/2. Cosine of theta equals plus or minus the square root of 1, which is 1, over the square root of 2, which is plus or minus rad 2 over 2. Well, that's when it's pi over 4s, right? And plus or minus is these. So we're going to have all the pi over 4s. Pi over 4, 3 pi over 4, 5 pi over 4, and 7 pi over 4. 4 answers because it's plus or minus. When you get plus or minus, it's all the positive cosines and the negative cosines. So your homework is going to be number 97, page 466, 13 to 26. And that's due tomorrow morning, Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. And I'll have another assignment for you in the morning by that time. Hope everything's going well. Thank you.